Last May, at my nephew Liam's 10th birthday, the air buzzed with laughter and clinking glasses. A towering blue cake glowed under flickering candles, promising joy. But beneath the celebration, a storm was brewing, one that would shatter my heart and redefine my family forever. As I stood among the crowd, my sister Marissa handed me a slice of cake, her smile sharp. "Here's your slice, sis," she said loudly, "the family ATM always delivers." The room froze. Her words cut deep, exposing years of being valued only for what I gave. Those words unveiled 7 years of sacrifice, $93, $400 poured into their lives, my dreams deferred. That moment broke me, but it sparked a reckoning. Walking away from that party wasn't just an exit, it was the beginning of finding my worth and rebuilding our family on truth. I'm Evelyn, 36, a software engineer in Boston's restless pulse. In Elmhurst, Marissa and I were inseparable, whispering dreams under floral comforters. Our parents' divorce pushed me into family fixer. My tech fusion career brought stability, but an ache lingered. Who am I beyond my money? 7 years, $93, I poured into Marissa's family, $93,000 for her mortgage, Liam's tuition, a sturdy roof. Each transfer drained my savings, dreams of a condo or Italy trip faded. I called it love, for Liam's future, for peace. But every check I wrote felt heavier, like trading my life. Marissa's thanks grew colder, her eyes on dollars, not me. At Liam's 10th birthday, her cruel comment ripped it apart, forcing me to confront a truth I'd buried deep. That party was my breaking point, and turning point. Marissa's words, sharp as glass, shattered my illusions. Walking away, I feared losing my family forever. Instead, I found a path to truth. This isn't just about money or betrayal, it's about boundaries, reclaiming worth. From Elmhurst's quiet streets to Boston's chaos, I learned the hardest love says no. This story is about losing the family I thought we were, finding who we could be. Join me in this tale of loss, healing and finding family again. Marissa and I grew up woven together, two threads in the quiet fabric of Elmhurst, a Chicago suburb where life hummed softly in the 1990s. Our small ranch house, with its creaky porch swing, held us close. We shared a bedroom, floral comforters draped over twin beds, where we'd giggle over schoolyard crushes and plot adventures under the glow of a clip-on lamp. Marissa, 3 years older, was my shield, braiding my hair, chasing off bullies, teaching me to rollerblade on our cracked driveway. I was her shadow, trailing her to the corner store for cherry slushies, our sneakers kicking up summer dust. Our parents, Dad with his accountant's precision and Mom with her third-grade teacher's warmth, built a world that felt unbreakable. We weren't wealthy, but love filled the gaps, Sunday pancake mornings, board games by the fireplace. Those days, I believed Marissa and I could conquer anything together. The world was ours, and our bond was a fortress. But even the strongest walls can crack when the ground beneath them shifts, and ours was about to tremble in ways we couldn't foresee. Marissa and I weren't just sisters, we were allies in a childhood that demanded we hold tight to each other. In Elmhurst, where neighbors knew your name, we carved out our own language, whispered secrets after lights out, promises to never let the other fall. She'd defend me when kids teased my scrawny frame, I'd cheer loudest at her volleyball games, my voice hoarse with pride. Our parents' laughter filled our home, Dad's bad puns and Mom's patient eye rolls a comforting rhythm. But beneath the surface, their marriage strained, and we felt it, like a low hum before a storm. Marissa, at 19, would sneak me out for late-night drives, her beat-up Honda rattling as we sang to mixtapes, drowning out the tension at home. Those moments cemented our loyalty. I trusted her to lead, she leaned on my quiet strength. We were each other's anchor in a world starting to tilt. I didn't know then how fiercely I'd cling to that bond, or how it would both save and trap me when our family's foundation finally crumbled under the weight of unspoken truths. At 16, my world fractured. Our parents' divorce wasn't a quiet unraveling, it was a jagged break, splitting our Elmhurst life in two. Dad's affair with a coworker left Mom hollow, her eyes red from nights spent crying over unpaid bills. His child support checks arrived late, if at all, forcing Mom to pick up extra shifts tutoring after school. Marissa and I moved with her to a cramped apartment, the kind where thin walls carried every neighbor's argument. Our floral comforters looked out of place against peeling paint. The porch swing, the fireplace nights, gone. Marissa, 19, grew restless, her dreams of college fading under the pressure of survival. I'd lie awake, hearing Mom's muffled sobs, my chest tight with a guilt I couldn't name. I started to see Marissa differently, not just my protector, but someone lost, searching for escape. The divorce didn't just break our family, it reshaped us. I buried myself in school, determined to build a future where we'd never struggle again. But that fracture left scars, and the weight of holding us together began to settle on my shoulders, heavier than I could have imagined. At 16, I became more than a sister or daughter, I became a provider. Our new apartment smelled of damp carpet, and Mom's extra jobs barely covered rent. I got a job at a grocery store, scanning cans of soup and bagging produce until my arms ached. The $6.50 an hour I earned went to utilities, sometimes Marissa's car gas so she could keep waitressing. She dropped out of community college, her spark dimmed by late shifts and a rushed engagement to Derek, a mechanic with a kind smile but unsteady work. I'd see her come home, feet swollen, and still make time to check my homework. I pushed myself harder, straight A's, AP classes, dreaming of a college scholarship to lift us out. Marissa's wedding at 20 was small, held in a community hall with paper streamers. I gave her my savings for a dress, telling myself it was worth it to see her smile. Every late shift, every skipped school dance, I told myself I was building a safety net for us all. But I didn't see how my role was shifting, how I was stepping into a responsibility that would define, and confine, me. That year, I made a vow in the quiet of our apartment, Mom's sobs echoing through thin walls, I'd never let my family struggle again. At 16, it felt noble, a lifeline to hold Marissa, Mom, and me together. I juggled 3 jobs, grocery clerk, math tutor, weekend barista, saving every penny for college. Marissa's new life with Derek was shaky, his job at the auto shop barely covered their rent. I'd slip her cash for groceries, telling myself it was temporary. I got into University of Illinois with a partial scholarship, studying computer science through bleary-eyed nights. Marissa's calls for help grew, $200 for a phone bill, $500 for car repairs. I sent what I could, my own dreams of study abroad or a new laptop fading. That vow, born of love, became a cage, locking me into a role I didn't question. I thought I was saving them, but I was losing myself, tying my worth to what I could give. Years later, at Liam's birthday, that cage would crack open, forcing me to face the cost of a promise I'd made too young. Graduating from the University of Illinois felt like breaking through a ceiling I'd stared at for years. At 22, with a computer science degree and a partial scholarship behind me, I stepped into a world that seemed to glitter with possibility. My first job at Tech Fusion, a Boston startup pulsing with ambition, was a whirlwind of code, coffee, and late nights. I loved it, the hum of servers, the thrill of solving problems, the way my colleagues nodded when I spoke. By 26, I'd climbed to software engineer, my salary a number I'd once thought impossible. At 30, as a senior engineer, I was earning 6 figures, a figure that felt like a shield against the struggles of my Elmhurst childhood. Boston's skyline became my backdrop, its restless energy matching my own. I rented a sleek apartment overlooking the Charles River, though I rarely saw it, my days consumed by deadlines and deployments. I was proud, not just of my work but of what it meant. I'd built a life where I could stand tall, where I could keep my family safe. Marissa's calls started then, soft at first, like ripples on a pond. a quick $200 for a phone bill, $300 for a medical copay. I sent the money without hesitation, grateful I could help. It felt like love, like honoring the vow I'd made at 16 to never let them struggle. I didn't see the ripples widening, didn't feel the undertow pulling me in. I was Evelyn, the fixer, the one who made things right. Tech Fusion promoted me again, my stock options growing, my future bright. But every wire transfer to Marissa chipped away at that brightness, a shadow I ignored because family came first. I thought I was building a bridge back to our childhood closeness, not a cage that would trap me in a role I couldn't escape. Those early days in Boston were my triumph, but they were also the start of a slow, unseen unraveling. Marissa's requests grew heavier, like stones piling on my chest. What started as small favors, $600 for car repairs she swore she'd repay, morphed into demands that carried an unspoken weight. By the time Liam was born, her calls came with urgency, each one a plea wrapped in guilt. "We're family, Evelyn," she'd say, her voice soft but edged. I sent $20,000 for a down payment on their house, a split level in a tidy suburb, telling myself it was for Liam's future, for stability. Then $5,400 for a roof leak, $3,000 for daycare, $12,000 a year for Liam's private school tuition. Over 7 years, the numbers climbed, $93,400, a sum that felt like a second job I never signed up for. Marissa's gratitude, once warm, turned perfunctory, a quick, "Thanks, sis," before the next ask. Derek's mechanic job was unsteady, his hours cut when the shop slowed. Marissa stayed home with Liam, her part-time gig at a boutique barely covering groceries. I became their safety net, their bank, my account balance a lifeline they leaned into without question. Each transfer left me hollower, my own life shrinking to fit their needs. I'd stare at my laptop, Tech Fusion's code blurring, wondering how I'd become the one holding their world together. Marissa's texts stopped asking how I was, they were lists of expenses, as if my role was assumed. I told myself it was temporary, that family helped family, that Liam deserved the best. But the weight of those stones pressed harder, and I started to feel less like a sister and more like a resource, my worth measured in dollars sent. I didn't see it then, but I was drowning in their expectations, my own dreams slipping further out of reach with every check I wrote. That burden wasn't just financial, it was a betrayal of the bond one thought we shared, a slow erosion of the Marissa who once braided my hair and promised we'd always have each other. Every dollar I sent Marissa was a piece of my future carved away. I'd once dreamed of a cozy Boston condo, with big windows and a reading nook, a place to call mine. Instead, my apartment stayed small, functional, my savings drained by Liam's tuition and Marissa's mortgage. I'd planned to travel, Italy's Amalfi Coast, Japan's cherry blossoms, places I'd pinned on a vision board in college. Those plans faded, replaced by bank statements bleeding red. Retirement savings? I pushed that off, telling myself I was young, I'd catch up. But at 36, I felt the clock ticking, my financial security a ghost I couldn't chase. I'd skip dinners with friends, claiming work, too ashamed to admit I couldn't afford the bill after another $2,000 for Marissa's car loan. My life became a series of trade-offs, each one a quiet loss. I'd walk past travel agencies, their posters taunting, and feel a pang for the Evelyn who once believed she could have it all. At Tech Fusion, I buried myself in work, my promotions bittersweet, more money meant more to give, not more for me. I told myself it was for Liam, picturing his gap-toothed smile, his science projects pinned to Marissa's fridge. But late at night, alone with my thoughts, I'd wonder, what about my dreams? Why did they always come last? Marissa's family lived in a house I'd helped buy, while I lived in a life I couldn't fully claim. The sacrifice wasn't just money, it was my identity, my freedom, my chance to build something for myself. I'd lie awake, the city's hum outside my window, feeling like I was disappearing, my worth tied to what I could provide. That slow fade, that erosion of self, hurt more than the dollars lost. It was a betrayal I didn't name until Marissa's words at Liam's birthday cut through the fog, forcing me to see how far I'd drifted from the woman I wanted to be. Nora saw it before I did, her sharp eyes catching the cracks I'd ignored. My college friend, now a therapist in Cambridge, had a way of cutting through my excuses with quiet precision. Over coffee at a cramped cafe, she leaned forward, her voice low but firm. "Evelyn, this isn't help, it's emotional blackmail. You're more than their money." I laughed it off, stirring my latte, the steam blurring her face. "It's family, Nora. You wouldn't get it." But her words lodged in me, a splinter I couldn't pull. She'd noticed my tired eyes, my cancelled plans, the way I flinched when my phone buzzed with Marissa's name. Nora recounted our college days, late-night study sessions, my dreams of coding apps that changed lives, backpacking across Europe. "Where's that Evelyn?" she asked, her gaze steady. I shrugged, but inside, I ached. Marissa's house, with its new furniture and manicured lawn, stood in stark contrast to my bare apartment, my life stripped to essentials. Nora didn't push, but she planted a seed. What if I said no? What if I valued myself as much as I valued them? I brushed it off, paid for our coffee, and changed the subject. But driving home, her words echoed, mingling with the hum of Boston streets. I thought of Marissa's latest ask, $500 for Liam's summer camp, and felt a flicker of resentment, quickly smothered by guilt. Nora's warning was a mirror I wasn't ready to face, but it stayed with me, a quiet challenge to the role I'd accepted. I didn't know then that her voice would return, clear and urgent, at Liam's birthday, when Marissa's cruel comment would shatter my defenses. Nora's wake-up call wasn't just about money, it was about reclaiming my worth, about seeing myself as more than a bank, a sister, a person with dreams worth fighting for. That coffee chat, so ordinary, was the first step toward a reckoning I didn't see coming. I pulled into Marissa's driveway that May afternoon, the sun warm on my shoulders, a telescope tucked under one arm and a cream-colored envelope in my hand. Liam's 10th birthday party was in full swing, a spectacle that could have rivaled a small wedding. Balloons in every shade of blue bobbed above a sprawling bounce house, its hum mingling with children's shrieks. A professional photographer snapped candids, her camera flashing as Liam, gap-toothed and beaming, darted through the crowd. Caterers in crisp white shirts wove through guests, offering trays of sliders and fruit skewers. I'd spent weeks researching that telescope, picturing Liam's eyes lighting up as we'd stargaze together, naming constellations like we did when he was small. The envelope held a confirmation for $12,000, another year of his private school tuition, a gift I'd promised Marissa to keep Liam in a place where he'd thrive. I wore my best blazer, hoping to blend into the polished scene, but my chest tightened as I stepped onto the lawn. This wasn't just a party, it was a showcase of a life I'd helped build, brick by invisible brick. Marissa's home gleamed, its fresh paint and manicured hedges a far cry from the cramped apartment we'd shared as teens. I smiled at neighbors who praised Liam's manners, their words warm but distant, as if I were a guest in a world I'd funded. Marissa, in a flowing sundress, hugged me briefly, her perfume sharp, her eyes already scanning the crowd. Derek, nursing a beer, nodded from the patio. I set the telescope with the gifts, my fingers lingering on the box, and tucked the envelope in my purse, its weight a quiet reminder of my role. I told myself this was for Liam, for family, but a hollow ache stirred deep inside, whispering that something was off, that my place here wasn't what I'd imagined. The party roared on, bright and loud, but I felt like a shadow, unseen despite everything I'd given. As I mingled, the signs of my contributions were everywhere, yet somehow invisible to the crowd. Marissa's home wasn't just a house, it was a monument to my sacrifices. The new leather sectional in the living room, the stainless steel appliances gleaming in the open kitchen, the landscaped backyard with its stone fire pit, all bore traces of my $93,400, sent over 7 years in chunks that bled my savings dry. I'd paid $20,000 for their down payment, $5,400 for a roof that wouldn't leak, $12,000 yearly for Liam's school. Yet, as guests marveled at Marissa's hard work, no one mentioned me. I overheard a neighbor say, "They've done so well for themselves," and my smile stiffened, a knot forming in my throat. Marissa's digs about my telescope, another fancy gift, Evelyn? Landed like pinpricks, her tone light but cutting. She'd laugh, tossing her hair, as if my effort was a quirk, not a lifeline. Derek's new truck sat in the driveway, its chrome glinting, bought after I'd sent $10,000 for emergencies. I wandered through the party, my blazer suddenly too tight, feeling like a stranger in a life I'd built. Liam ran past, his laughter bright, and I clung to that sound, telling myself it was worth it. But the praise for Marissa's hosting, her perfect home, her thriving son, grated against my silence. I'd cancelled my own dreams, a condo, a trip to Italy, to keep their world afloat, yet I stood there, unnoticed, my role reduced to a checkbook no one acknowledged. Marissa's ease, her confidence as she played hostess, felt like a betrayal, as if my sacrifices were expected, my presence incidental. I gripped my purse, the tuition envelope crinkling, and forced a smile as guests complimented the cake, a three-tiered masterpiece I hadn't paid for but could have. The ache in my chest grew, a warning I couldn't name, whispering that I'd given too much, that the sister I'd once shared secrets with saw me as a means, not a person. The party's joy felt like a mask, hiding a truth I wasn't ready to face. The moment came during the cake cutting, the crowd gathered in a semicircle, candles casting a soft glow on Liam's face. Marissa stood beside him, her sundress catching the light, her smile wide as she sliced into the blue fondant. The room buzzed with anticipation, phones raised to capture the moment. I stood near the back, my heart swelling with love for Liam, my nephew who still hugged me like I was his hero. Marissa turned to me, a plate of cake in her hand, and extended it with a flourish. "Here's your slice, sis," she said, her voice loud enough to carry over the chatter. "The family ATM always delivers, doesn't it?" The words landed like a blade, sharp and cold. Derek's laugh, a harsh bark, echoed in the sudden hush. Guests shifted, their smiles faltering, a few chuckling awkwardly to fill the silence. My mother, Clara, standing nearby, muttered, "Let it go, Evelyn," her voice a plea to keep the peace. But I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The plate trembled in my hand, frosting smearing under my grip. Marissa's eyes met mine, glinting with something I couldn't read, amusement, defiance, maybe both. 7 years of sacrifices flashed through my mind, $93, $400, my dreams deferred, my life shaped around their needs. Her comment wasn't just a joke, it was a truth she'd dared to speak, stripping me bare in front of everyone. I'd been their bank, their fixer, but never their equal. The love I'd poured into them felt mocked, my worth reduced to dollars and cents. My chest burned, a mix of shame and rage, as the room waited for my reaction. I wanted to scream, to hurl the cake back, to demand they see me, Evelyn, the sister, the aunt, the woman who'd given everything. But I stood frozen, the weight of their gazes pinning me in place, my heart splintering under the realization that the family I'd fought for didn't see me at all. In that frozen moment, the world seemed to pause, the hum of the party fading to a dull roar in my ears. My hand shook, the cake plate tilting, as Marissa's words echoed, "Family ATM." For a split second, I almost let it slide. I'd done it before, swallowed the hurt, smiled through the slights, kept the peace for Liam, for Mom, for the family I'd vowed to protect. I pictured Liam's face, his innocent joy, and felt a tug to stay, to pretend her words hadn't gutted me. But then Nora's voice cut through, clear as a bell from that coffee shop months ago, "You're more than their money, Evelyn." Her words were a lifeline, pulling me back from the edge of surrender. My sacrifices, $600 for car repairs, $20,000 for their house, $12,000 for Liam's school, weren't love, they were chains, binding me to a role that erased me. I looked at Marissa, her smile unchanged, and something snapped. I couldn't do this anymore, couldn't be their bank while my own life crumbled. That doubt, that fleeting urge to stay, gave way to a quiet resolve, a spark that would ignite my next step, one I hadn't planned but couldn't avoid. Marissa's words, family ATM, hung in the air, a wound I couldn't ignore. The cake plate trembled in my hand, its blue frosting blurring as my heart pounded. The room, once alive with laughter, now felt like a stage, every eye on me, waiting for the Evelyn who always fixed things to nod and move on. But I couldn't. Not this time. Nora's voice echoed in my head, "You're more than their money." 7 years, $93,400, my dreams traded for their comfort, it crashed over me like a wave. I set the cake down on the nearest table, the clink of the plate sharp in the silence. My feet moved before my mind caught up, carrying me to the gift table where the cream-colored envelope lay, its $12,000 tuition confirmation a symbol of my invisible role. I picked it up, my hands steady despite the storm inside. Turning to face Marissa, her smile still fixed, I spoke, my voice low but clear, "Good luck covering next semester. I just canceled the payment." The words felt foreign, like they belonged to someone braver, someone who'd finally seen her worth. Marissa's eyes widened, her mouth parting as if to protest. Derek's beer paused mid-sip, his laughter gone. My mother, Clara, stepped forward, her whisper desperate, "Evelyn, don't." But I was done swallowing my pain. Each step toward the door felt heavier, the weight of their expectations pulling at me, but I kept going. The telescope I'd brought for Liam sat among the gifts, a reminder of the love I'd given freely, now tainted by their disregard. I wasn't just walking away from a party, I was breaking free from a cage I'd built with every check, every sacrifice. The May air hit my face as I reached the porch, warm and heavy, but I felt lighter, as if I'd shed a skin that never fit. Saying enough wasn't just a moment, it was a declaration, a reclaiming of the Evelyn I'd lost to their needs. The silence I left behind shattered as I crossed the threshold. Marissa's voice cracked, calling my name, a mix of panic and disbelief. "Evelyn, wait," she shouted, but I didn't turn back. Derek's gruff, "It was a joke, lighten up," landed flat, his words chasing me like a weak defense. Clara's plea, "Don't do this today," carried the weight of a mother desperate to hold her fractured family together. Guests murmured, their voices a low hum of confusion, some stepping onto the porch to watch me go. I could feel their eyes, Marissa's frozen smile unraveling, Derek's confusion hardening into something sharper. Liam's laughter, still echoing from the bounce house, pierced me, a reminder of the boy I'd done this all for. But this wasn't about him, it was about the truth they'd ignored. Marissa's footsteps faltered behind me, her urgency fading as I reached my car. The party's joy, so carefully curated, collapsed under the weight of my exit. I'd been their bank, their fixer, but in that moment, I was Evelyn, a sister who'd finally demanded to be seen. Their shock was a mirror, reflecting a family that had taken me for granted, now forced to face the cost of their words. I slid into my car, the leather seat cool against my trembling hands. The key turned, the engines hum a steady anchor as Marissa's house receded in my rearview mirror. Partygoers spilled onto the porch, their faces a blur of shock and curiosity, but I kept my eyes forward. The May sun blazed, its light harsh, exposing every crack in the life I'd built for them. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white, as Liam's face flashed in my mind, his gap-toothed smile, his joy at the telescope I'd left behind. A pang of guilt nearly stopped me. I pulled over, my breath ragged, and glanced at my phone, a photo of Liam at his science fair glowing on the screen. I almost turned back, imagining his confusion, his tears when Marissa would spin her version of this day. But Nora's words returned, steady and clear, "You're more than their money." This wasn't just about a cancelled payment, it was about teaching them to stand without me, about reclaiming my life from the cage of their needs. I thought of the $93,400 I'd given, $20,000 for their house, $12,000 for Liam's school, $600 for car repairs that were never repaid. Each dollar had been a piece of me, traded for a role that erased my dreams. Driving on, Boston's skyline loomed in the distance, a reminder of the life I'd paused for them. The road stretched ahead, open and uncertain, mirroring the path I was choosing. I wasn't abandoning Liam, I was showing him what strength looked like, what it meant to value yourself. The party's noise faded, replaced by the quiet of my own thoughts, a space I hadn't claimed in years. My heart ached, but it beat with a new rhythm, resolve, not obligation. This drive wasn't an escape, it was a beginning, a step toward a life where I was Evelyn, not the family ATM, a woman with dreams worth chasing, a sister who loved fiercely but no longer at the cost of herself. The moment I drove away from Marissa's house, my phone became a battlefield. Notifications buzzed relentlessly, each one a fresh wound. Marissa sent 47 texts, a barrage that started with shock, "How could you do this?" and spiraled into rage, "You're punishing Liam for a joke." Her 23 calls went unanswered, her voicemails a mix of pleading and accusation, her voice cracking as she demanded I come back. My mother, Clara, left 12 messages, her tone heavy with guilt. "Liam's crying, Evelyn. He thinks you don't love him anymore." Her words cut deepest, conjuring my nephew's face, his innocent eyes searching for answers I couldn't give. Derek's drunken voicemail was a slurred rant, "You think you're better than us?" Followed hours later by a stiff apology, his voice flat, as if reading a script. The chaos wasn't just in my phone, it was in my heart, a storm of guilt and defiance. I checked into a hotel, the sterile room a stark contrast to the party's false warmth. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my screen, the weight of their anger pressing against my resolve. I texted Liam, "I love you, buddy. This is grown-up stuff." It felt inadequate, a bandage on a wound I'd caused. Marissa's texts painted me as selfish, but I saw her panic for what it was, fear of a life without my money. 7 years, $93,400, had made me their crutch, and now they were falling. Clara's pleas to fix this echoed her lifelong habit of smoothing over cracks, but I couldn't play that role anymore. Derek's apology rang hollow, a man scrambling to save face. The family I'd poured everything into was unraveling, their voices a chorus of blame, but I felt a strange clarity beneath the pain. Walking away wasn't just about me, it was about forcing them to stand, to see me as more than a bank. The chaos they hurled at me was proof, they'd taken me for granted, and now, without my safety net, they were lost. I took a week off work, retreating from TechFusion's hum to face the silence I'd avoided for years. I found a lake outside Boston, its surface still under a fading sun, and sat on a weathered bench, a notebook in my lap. The chaos of Marissa's texts, Clara's voicemails, Derek's slurred words, they followed me, a shadow I couldn't shake. I wrote it all down, every sting, every doubt, hoping the words would make sense of the fracture I'd caused. My pen traced Liam's name, his laughter at the party haunting me. Had I hurt him too deeply? Was my walkout a betrayal of the boy I'd sacrificed so much for? I thought of the $12,000 tuition I'd canceled, the $20,000 for their house, the $600 for car repairs, each some a piece of my life I'd given away. Why had I let it go so far? The lake offered no answers, just ripples that spread and vanished. I replayed Marissa's family ATM comment, its cruelty a mirror to my own denial. I'd enabled them, thinking it was love, but it was fear, fear of losing the sister who'd once shielded me, the family I'd vowed to protect. Clara's voice, urging me to let it go, felt like a chain, binding me to a role I'd outgrown. I wrote Nora's words, "You're more than their money," and stared at them, their truth both liberating and terrifying. What was I without that role? A software engineer, yes, but who else? The question gnawed at me, raw and unformed. I thought of my Boston apartment, bare and functional, a life paused for their needs. The lake's quiet held space for my grief, for the sister I'd lost to Marissa's entitlement, for the dreams I'd buried. I wasn't ready for answers, but I was finally asking the right questions. Journaling felt like peeling back layers, exposing a woman I'd forgotten, Evelyn, not the fixer, but someone with a life worth claiming. The search wasn't over, but in that stillness, I felt the first stirrings of a path forward, one I'd walk alone if I had to. I drove to Cape Cod alone, the ocean's roar a stark contrast to the lake's calm. Standing on a windswept beach, sand stinging my skin, I faced the question that had chased me since the party: who am I if I'm not fixing their problems? The waves crashed, relentless, offering no reply. Marissa's texts had stopped, Clara's voicemails silenced, but their weight lingered. I thought of Liam, my heart aching for the aunt I wanted to be, not the bank I'd been. A tear fell, salt mingling with salt, as I saw my life clearly, $93, $400 given, my dreams of Italy and a condo traded for their comfort. I'd thought I was saving them, but I'd lost myself. Nora's words echoed, a beacon in the fog: you're more than their money. For the first time, I believed it. The ocean stretched endless before me, mirroring a future I could shape. I wasn't their ATM, I was Evelyn, a woman with stories, dreams, worth. That epiphany, born in the raw solitude of Cape Cod, wasn't an answer but a beginning, a spark to rebuild a life where I mattered as much as they did. The weeks after the party were raw, like walking on glass, but I knew I couldn't go back to being the family ATM. I found Dr. Morgan, a therapist whose calm voice felt like a safe harbor. In her office, I unraveled 7 years of giving, $93, $400, my dreams, my sense of self, laid bare on her worn couch. She helped me see I'd been an enabler, not a savior, pouring money into Marissa's life to avoid losing her, to keep the sister who'd once braided my hair close. Naming that truth hurt, but it freed me. I joined a support group for caretakers, a circle of strangers who felt like kin. Their stories, of siblings who took, parents who leaned too hard, mirrored mine, and for the first time, I didn't feel alone. I reconnected with Nora, my college friend whose warning had sparked my awakening. We hiked the Middlesex Fells, her laughter a balm, her questions gentle. What do you want, Evelyn? Heather, another friend I'd drifted from, joined us for Thai food, our table loud with stories of our 20s, before I'd let family eclipse everything. Those nights rebuilt me, brick by brick, reminding me I was more than a bank, more than a fixer. I started saying no, not just to Marissa, but to the guilt that had chained me. Dr. Morgan taught me boundaries weren't walls, they were doors to a life where I could love without losing myself. I began to dream again, small at first, a weekend getaway, a coding project for fun. The support group clapped when I shared my first no to Marissa, a $500 ask for a new couch. Their cheers echoed Nora's words, "You're enough." I was Evelyn, 36, a software engineer with a heart that still ached but now beat with purpose. Those new bonds, forged in therapy and friendship, weren't just healing, they were a foundation for a life I'd paused for too long, a life I was finally ready to claim. Slowly, my family began to shift, like a house settling after a storm. Marissa got a job at Liam's new public school, her pride fragile but growing as she earned her own way. Derek picked up weekend shifts at the auto shop, his gruff apologies turning into quiet respect. Liam thrived, his science projects, solar systems crafted from foam and wire, winning ribbons at school fairs. I visited him, bringing the telescope I'd gifted at his birthday, and we stargazed in their backyard, his questions about Jupiter lighting up the night. Those moments with Liam, free of the weight of money, felt like the aunt I'd always wanted to be. Marissa and I didn't talk about the party, not yet, but her texts softened, asking about my work, not my wallet. I met Michael at a Tech Fusion conference, his dry humor and steady presence a surprise I hadn't sought. He'd grown up with a sister like Marissa, always taking, and understood boundaries in a way that felt like coming home. Our first date, kayaking on the Charles River, was clumsy, me tipping the boat, him laughing, but it was real. We'd talk for hours, about code, about dreams, about the families we'd fought to love without losing ourselves. Michael didn't need me to fix him, and that was new, a love that asked for nothing but me. My family's rebuilding wasn't perfect, Marissa's old habits surfaced, Derek's temper flared, but they were trying, and so was I. I set boundaries, like refusing to pay for Liam's summer camp, suggesting free community programs instead. Marissa bristled, but she listened, and Liam loved the camp. Those small victories, paired with Michael's hand in mine, showed me love could be honest, not transactional. I was learning to be Evelyn, not the bank, but a sister, an aunt, a partner who could give without giving herself away. The family I'd walked away from at Liam's birthday wasn't gone, it was changing, and so was I, building a life where love didn't cost my soul. One evening, a 5-page letter arrived, Marissa's handwriting shaky on the envelope. I sat at my kitchen table, heart racing, and read her words. She admitted she'd seen me as a resource, not a sister, her entitlement born of fear of failing Liam, of losing the life I'd helped build. I didn't see you, Evelyn, she wrote, and I'm sorry. Her honesty stung, but it was raw, real. She was in therapy, grappling with her own worth, learning to stand without leaning on me. We met for coffee in a quiet cafe, the air thick with nerves. Marissa's eyes, once sharp with expectation, were softer, tired. I miss you, she said, her voice catching. I nodded, my throat tight, unable to say how much I'd missed her too, the sister who'd shared my childhood, not the one who'd called me ATM. It was awkward, a first step, but it was ours. Marissa's letter wasn't just an apology, it was a bridge, fragile but spanning the gap we'd created. We were rebuilding, not as we were, but as we could be, sisters, equals, learning to love without losing ourselves. Walking away from Liam's birthday party hurt, a raw ache that lingered like a bruise. Marissa's words, family ATM, had stripped me bare, exposing 7 years of giving, $93, $400 for their house, Liam's tuition, their emergencies, that cost me my dreams. But that pain was a turning point, a spark that lit a path I hadn't seen. Saying no wasn't just about money, it was about reclaiming my worth. I'm not the bank I'd become, the fixer who erased herself to keep them afloat. I'm Evelyn, a sister who loves fiercely, an aunt who treasures Liam's starry-eyed wonder, a partner who's learning to let love in without losing herself. Therapy with Dr. Morgan and nights with Nora taught me boundaries aren't walls, they're compasses, guiding me to a life where I matter. Marissa's letter, her shaky apology over coffee, showed me they're learning too, rebuilding without leaning on me. Liam's thriving, his science projects a testament to his strength, not my checks. Michael's laughter, warm and steady, reminds me love doesn't demand sacrifice. That party broke us, but it also saved us, forcing us to face truths we'd buried. I lost the family I thought we were, dependent, fragile, but found one stronger, built on honesty. The hardest boundaries, the ones that feel like betrayal, bring the deepest healing. I'm no longer the ATM, but a compass, pointing to a life where love means seeing each other clearly. This journey taught me that saying no can be the greatest act of love, for them, for me, for the family we're becoming. It's not perfect, but it's real, and I'm finally Evelyn, standing tall in a story I'm writing for myself. For years, I put my dreams on hold, pouring $93,400 into Marissa's life while mine waited. A condo with big windows, a trip to Italy's cliffs, a retirement fund, those faded under the weight of their needs. But now, I'm reclaiming them. This year, I'm planning a solo trip to Iceland, where glaciers gleam and skies dance with northern lights. It's a dream I'd shelved, thinking family came first, but saying no gave me back my yes. I'm saving again, not for their emergencies, but for my future, a coding project I love, hikes with Michael, moments that are mine. Marissa's working, Derek's stepping up, and Liam's happy, proving they don't need my money to shine. I'm learning to chase what lights me up, to live for Evelyn, not just the sister or aunt. My journey's just beginning, and it's messy, but it's mine. What dream have you paused? What boundary could set you free? I'd love to hear your story. Share it in the comments. Let's inspire each other. Like this video, subscribe, and join me as we chase the lives we deserve, one brave step at a time. This story, my story, isn't just about a birthday or a fight, it's about finding yourself when you've given too much. Every week, I share tales of growth, of learning to love without losing yourself. From Elmhurst's quiet streets to Boston's hum, I've walked a path of loss and healing, and I'm not alone. Your stories, your struggles, your victories, they matter. Subscribe to join me, hit that bell, and let's keep this conversation going. Check out my videos on rebuilding savings or spotting toxic family patterns. Your support fuels this journey. Let's grow together, one story at a time.